All right, we are live. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Rajat Sudana. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT. And today we have a very exciting session with one of our former students, Sankalp. Sankalp is a former UCLA Anderson MBA, and he's currently working as a program manager at Microsoft. There are many reasons I'm super excited about the session. One is a big former student. It's always good to have former students. Second is it's a phenomenal example of a career transition that I've not seen uh, that happen that frequently, and so we'll talk to Sankalp about how he went about it. And then the third reason why I am super excited about this is because it's an example of a student who has gotten multiple scholarships, about 200K worth of scholarships. So we're going to talk about that as well. So Sankalp, welcome to the session, and just to get started, do you want to give a brief background of your pre-MBA career versus what you do? Just a high level overview.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rajat. Thanks for inviting me. Very excited to be here today. So, to give you more of a context on my background, before MBA, I was running a preschool education firm in my hometown, Jaipur, in India. And I decided, I want to focus more on running a technology product at a larger company in the high tech industry. And the way to do that or to transition in that career, I think the MBA seemed to be a natural choice, as it gives you perspective on business and how things run at scale, but also
Mhm.
gives you the chance to recruit with the companies that you want to be, right? So uh, that was kind of the transition. Now, in my post MBA career, I am at Microsoft. I have had a couple of roles at Microsoft, starting from a product marketing manager, and now I work as a program manager in a product called Microsoft Dynamics 365 for customer service.
So that's kind of one of the ways in which you compete with Salesforce through Dynamics 365, if I
That's
understand
right.
correctly.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about your background, and Atul or Anish, if you can share Sankalp's background. So the document that we have, I think this is really when you look at the background, it'd be super impressive as to the journey that Sankalp has had. So you were someone who actually started. We were talking about this earlier. You started with JP Morgan's in the mainframes division, and then you kind of decided this was not for you. Then you went and wrote 5 computer science books for your family business, and then from that point you actually started your own preschool. You said so. Walk me through the decision that criteria that you had along this line, and how you decided what you want to do at every stage in your pre-MBA career, and then how did you position this for the UCLA Anderson application, as well as the other schools, Stern, I think, and a bunch of other schools that you got into.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. First of all, like I'll give that. I'll caveat my answer by saying that I didn't have a grand plan of this is where I want to be in 6 years post my undergrad. That I'll go through these steps and eventually end up at Microsoft. So it happens, but at each stage of the journey, I've been doing what I felt is the next best step. So starting from JP Morgan, right? I went to JP Morgan because I was excited by the company. I was kind of allured by the finance sector at that time, and it felt like that right mix of being in a finance company in a tech role. Uh, of course, I discovered that I don't want to be in mainframes long term, and
Mm-hmm.
that was fine. So, and I was looking out for opportunities on what to do next. Fresh out of undergrad, around 9-10 months into a job, I got an opportunity to write books in my family business. I was very excited by writing. It was something I pursued as a hobby, and of course, I mean, I can say that I was naive enough to believe that I can write books, and so actually I went ahead, did all the work, put in the work, but ended up publishing 5 textbooks on computer science in a little over a year. So that happened, but what it exposed me was to the education industry, right? And coming to the next step of why did I open a preschool? So while I was writing books, I had a lot of interactions with schools and teachers, as you would imagine, right? Doing the research to write the material. That exposed me to there are a lot of challenges in the early education sector, especially where we haven't changed how we teach our kids. And so I decided to go solve it. I thought I'm equipped because I have done that research over the last 1.5 years, and went ahead and started that preschool. And I could have, for the next step, before I go to the next step of an MBA, I could have started probably any business. But what that business, and starting of that business gave me was the experience, entrepreneurship experience of doing something from 0 to 1.
Hmm.
And as we do something from 0 to 1, we face different challenges compared to taking something which is at 1 and scaling it to millions, right? So as we reached from 0 to 1, I kind of started realizing that we are hitting a plateau, and from here on to scale, to make this thing meaningful, I probably am not equipped. Like, I tried a bunch of things, I wasn't succeeding, and I thought, maybe it has something to do with I'm not really equipped right now to scale a business. Um, i I also had the feeling that I wanted to go back to corporate. And entrepreneurship is a great experience, but probably not for everybody, and not for everybody at particular moments in their career. And at that point, I felt, I really wanted to transition back to corporate, but quickly found out that, it's been 4 or 5 years since I left corporate, and what's a good way to transition back. So after a bunch of research, I discovered that an MBA is a good way to, first of all, teach me how to do things at scale, because that's probably the most important thing MBA teaches you: leadership and scale thinking. And then, of course, it gives me access to all those good, cool companies I want to work at. In terms of recruiting, I think it's a very important aspect. We don't nearly talk about it enough. And that, convinced me that an MBA is the right step for me. Once that happened, I came into the business school. I'll tell you more about it. So, like many people, I had also written in my applications I want to do consulting. And I truly believed, yeah, that the consulting is a great career. But of course, when you land at an MBA school, you meet with a bunch of people, you get exposed to a lot of things. And I discovered that the tech industry is the right fit for me. And eventually I landed in tech.
Perfect. That's thank you. That was a great response. So in many ways, your your decision to do an MBA was A, driven by a genuine need you couldn't scale, and B, was also because getting back to the corporate world was difficult without an MBA. So in some ways, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise that you couldn't get back to the corporate world.
Yeah.
Um, Now, thinking about an MBA, a lot, it starts with a GMAT, and you had that fantastic 750. You had a Q49 V42, but getting to that 750, probably wasn't as easy. So, what are some of the key struggles, the key challenges that you faced, and how did you go about overcoming that?
Sure. Yeah. So, before I even talk about my GMAT journey, I think, yeah, big thanks to e-GMAT. And nobody's telling me to say this, but I am really an advocate of e-GMAT, right? Because I really feel that, especially the verbal section, is just too good. It's awesome. And coming to my specific journey, I think it's similar to many of the candidates probably coming in from, Asian countries. It's, strong at math, think I'm strong at English, but turns out when I take the GMAT, it's a different story. So my specific struggle was that I had reached kind of a plateau in quant. So I was kind of consistently scoring 49s, and I discovered that trying to go from 49 to 50 or 51 isn't probably worth the extra effort isn't that it's going to take. And I think I was kind of getting stuck at around 32 or 34 in
Oh,
verbal.
32, 34, okay.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, this is where kind of the green field is, and this is where the potential is to grow my score. So I was very focused on how to grow my verbal score. I did a lot of kind of retrospectives on where I'm missing out, and once I discovered that I'm missing out on sentence correction, I specifically focused there as well
Mhm.
through e-GMAT. Once I kind of mastered the sentence correction piece, I think the 750 came.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I think just figuring out where essentially you lack is something which is phenomenal. And thank you for being an advocate. I think the very fact that you pushed your wife to take the GMAT course says volumes about it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Sankalp's
yeah.
wife also is an e-GMAT student who has a 720. Also, one of the other things, Sankalp, that you like. love to know is that we just redid a quant course, so the quant course now is done by Pile. The original one wasn't done by Pile, so that's something which actually I think some people say it's even better than the verbal course.
All right.
So let's now talk about this. So you had the 750, you had this interesting background, a mix of corporate, your own business, and so your family business, and then your own business. So three very unique experiences. Um, and then you applied to a bunch of schools, and you had admits from Stern, you had Tepper, Marshall with practically a full ride, Anderson with about 40% scholarship. So we're about good admits and about around about 200K in scholarship or so. So 170 to 200 total scholarship. So how did you kind of zero in on Anderson, and what were some of the factors that you considered?
Great. Yeah. So some of the factors I considered, I think, I was kind of looking at multiple things. One is, how is my MBA experience, the lived experience, going to be?
Mm,
So, you spend a bunch of time with your fellow classmates. When you're doing an MBA, you're spending a lot of time with people over the next 2 years. You really get to know them. So one aspect was that, where is that place and who is that cohort I want to spend my next 2 years with? What kind
mm,
of a culture that place would have? So that was one criteria. Next one was, I think, primary, or you can say secondary, but equally important, that what kind of career opportunities I would have
mm,
if I attend that school. What are the strengths of that school? How is the career management center? Because, see, coming in from India to US, I mean, I thought at least I would need some help, right? So where that help would be provided. And
mm,
third was, of course, cost, right? So as you can see, like, some of these schools gave me a scholarship, some of them could not, and the whole kind of return on investment thing comes into play. That where do I get the most bang for my buck? And considering all these things, I think I really liked my interactions with folks from UCLA Anderson. The culture really resonated. It felt like, we'll do awesome things, but be humble about it. So that kind of a culture present at UCLA. Great city,
mm,
Los Angeles. If you're an international person coming in, and not having to deal with that
mm.
negative temperatures. Beautiful sunny city of Los Angeles. So I knew
So
I
not
would
too
feel right.
cold.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like, Los
Yeah.
Angeles has amazing weather. You have Santa Monica, and things like that. But then UCLA also has a very strong career management center. At that time, it was ranked number 2 in the US, the Parker Career
Mm,
Management Center. Very strong representation in consulting as well as technology. So I knew that I could bank on the career management center and to take me through. And of course, as you see, like, yeah, I got a scholarship which kind of put the tuition and the cost of attendance kind of within my range of what I was looking at. And based on these factors, I chose UCLA.
So let's say I'm going to just put this question. We didn't have this in our questionnaire which we sent over, but I think now that you've said all of this, let's say you had the same scholarship from Tepper and Stern.
Yeah.
What would your decision have been? I mean, did you kind of think about it as like, man, if I get the same scholarship from Stern, and did you push for it? Say, Anderson is offering me the scholarship, and Stern, will you match the scholarship?
Right. Yeah. So one thing I would like admit is I wasn't probably as negotiation savvy at that time, and we kind of, yeah, hold education institutions in a different kind of respect and league, where you're not negotiating tuition as much. I think coming
Mm,
from India now, I know, that's not the case, and it's business at the end of the day. So
mm,
I didn't negotiate scholarships at that point. But coming to the next part of whether, if I received a similar scholarship from Stern and Tepper, I would attend. I think mixed. So Stern is a great school, right? It's absolutely one of the top schools. I visited New York to attend their
mm,
interview, and I loved the vibe. But I think many factors started coming into play for Stern. One of
mm,
them was, it's a finance heavy school, and I wasn't planning on a career in finance. The next
mm,
part is that I was coming in with kind of a less than 1 year old kid and a wife, and I
mm.
think New York City is a great place.
It's very brutal for a 1-year-old kid.
It's a
Yeah.
great place, but probably not the best place to transition into when you have kind of a dependent kid and child. And I felt we'll be more at home at Los Angeles.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, the weather-wise, it's much better. The cities, I mean, a lot. I mean, the apartments are bigger, especially where Anderson
Exactly.
is, and
Yeah.
and so I think as long as you can deal with the earthquakes, you're fine.
Yeah, no, if you get them thrice a day, you get used to it. So
You get used to it, used to them. Okay. So then let's go to one part. And then I see a lot of wonderful questions that are there and on both LinkedIn as well as on YouTube. We'll get to those questions. It's just we have a certain set of agenda items to go through, and I think a number of those questions will be answered in that process. So why do you think you got these scholars? I mean, if you think about it, you didn't have a traditional background. You someone who'd hopped around in his career. So why do you think,
right.
what factors helped you get these scholarships?
Yeah, I would like to say, it was my interesting background and those things, but I think the number one factor is GMAT. So I have, seen scholarships being like a straight function of GMAT scores. So I think I made a good decision to retake GMATs and reach that 750 because it helped me get that scholarship. Of course, I mean, the GMAT is not
The
never
only
alone.
thing.
Yeah, it's never alone the factor, not the only thing. So crafting those essays and making sure that the admissions team understands the value that you'll be bringing to a class.
Hmm.
Um, I think it also kind of is relative or comparative. In my experience, I'll be candid and say that if the admissions team believes that you might decline their admit, they might try to entice you with a scholarship. So based on the overall strength of your application, if a school believes that you will probably end up going to, I don't know what criteria, but maybe a higher ranked school or somewhere else, but they really want you, it's kind of a way for them to entice you into accepting. Um, but of course, you have to look at all of this from a school's perspective. Schools are trying to go up in rankings. Schools are trying to attract the best candidates, and some of the factors that come into play, right? So how are schools ranked? So they're ranked by the average GMAT, median GMAT score. They're ranked by number of years of experience that their candidates have, and where they finally end up going. So if the school believes you'll end up hitting or improving these criteria for them, I think you're worth spending 40 or 50K in to be brought in. It eventually plays into that economics. I think that's about it.
That's true. And I think one of the things is coming from scholars. So you also have interviewed candidates now as a part
Yeah.
of UCLA's, let's say, extended admissions committee. Let's call it that way,
Right.
not the core
Yeah.
part,
Of
but the
course. Yeah.
extended one. So what uh, what advice would you give to candidates to really position themselves well, and what should they do and what should they not do when it comes to writing to, I mean, crafting an application and just the interview piece, and you've been more probably around the interview piece than the application piece, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I'll say I'll talk about interviews first. So in the interviews, especially when I only have experience with UCLA interviewing candidates because they let students do it.
Mm.
Now, based on my experience, what we are trying to assess and the best candidates kind of display is they have a clear plan of why they want to do an MBA. I think that's number one. So they are not wishy-washy about an MBA is decent, I might do it, might not do it. So they have a very clear plan on why an MBA. Then they have researched the school enough so they understand what they're getting into and why they want to do an MBA at a specific school. So example UCLA. And the third is they know what they want to get out of an MBA. So what's their career path going to look like? And why, like do you have an example of somebody else who came from where you came from and kind of did it. So it's kind of a treaded path, a proven path. And that's great, but do you have a plan B? So I think the plan B part is also very important, because see, what schools don't want is people coming in and at the end of it feeling dissatisfied with their experience and kind of not getting what they want out of an MBA and feeling unsuccessful out of after an MBA. So if you know what you're getting into, what's most likely that you will get out of it, I think those are good candidates that we kind of look for in interviews.
Okay. I think that the couple of things that I want to kind of emphasize on. First of all, you really said find someone who's, if you're projecting a career path, find someone
Yeah.
who's done had a similar career path. And again, you don't have to go for identical, I believe. It has to be believable to the interviewer and to the school.
Totally, yeah,
Right.
totally. Because see, if you look at my career path, I probably won't find another person who started mainframes, right, wrote books, started a preschool, and went to Microsoft. So doesn't need to be identical, but of course, in the sense, the broad building blocks of a career that had some corporate experience, did some entrepreneurship, and now wants to transition back.
Back to corporate, yes.
Yeah,
Okay. Now the second piece that you really say is know the schools, know the school.
yeah.
So, and as someone who's been an interviewer, what are the 2 or 3 litmus tests that you have when you're interviewing a student to really say, if a student can answer these questions about Anderson, I think he's done a reasonable amount of research about the school and is truly passionate about, he or she is truly passionate about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting one. So, couple of things, I think. Yeah, one is that, do you know the kind of, maybe who are rock star professors? I don't know, if somebody mentions the professor's name and the courses they take and
The
why
kind
they're
of research
excited
they've
by it.
done.
Yeah, it shows they have, gone above and beyond in their research, rather than just look at schools ranking and, and things like that. The next one is if they can identify with the school's culture. So it won't be apparent from, a cursory glance at the website, but if you have talked to people from that school or not, right? Do you understand the culture that the school is looking for and continuing to build or not? I think that's again a litmus test, because it takes effort to talk to people from, bunch of different schools, understand what the school is about, and it shows commitment.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something which is very different. I mean, I was looking at, um, you know, websites of different B schools yesterday for something, and essentially, different schools have very different, cultures or what they want to do in some ways. So when I looked at Ross primarily focused on the fact that you'll be ready for whatever the world's going to throw at you. They had their real learning is a big thing over there. Versus when I looked at Harvard, they were talking about people. You'd be someone who'd make an impact. We're looking for people who'd make an impact on the world. So again, what the school's looking for is very different. You can get that sense right from the website, but then you have to dig deeper and make sure you understand what that difference is and how that translates into your own past experiences and your future aspirations. So that's something which is I think really important as you do this. Um, so we talked briefly about this, and I think so the common question. So for someone with your background, entrepreneurship, family business, and then prior to that corporate, and want to go back. Um, you talked about why MBA as to you couldn't scale your business, you wanted to do this, you want to get back into corporate. So how did you translate into the response that you gave either in your interviews or in the questions?
So let me think about it. But I think primarily what I wanted to come through in my interview was that
Hmm.
I have given it thought on why I wanted to do an MBA. I have identified the specific reasons, and as I shared, right, like I had my specific reasons to do an MBA, and then of course, like as I said, I had very specific reasons on why I wanted to come to Anderson. And based on the responses that you give or the stories that you share, right? So there are kind of story kind of questions also in interviews, that look like, okay, tell me about a time you faced this or that. And in those stories, if the school's culture comes through, so for Anderson, I think it's, think fearlessly, share success, and being in that collaborative mindset, and being of that collaborative nature. If that comes through, I think that's usually sufficient.
Well,
Uh,
for you, think fearlessly was right there with the preschool venture, man. That was a big thing. But yes, that's really good point. Yes. Yeah, carry on, carry on.
Yeah,
Sorry for
yeah.
interrupting.
No, of course, no. I think that was about it. So having these clarities on why you wanted to do things, and bringing that genuineness and connect with the culture. I think that's important. But then I would say the third thing was just practicing, right? So if you cannot deliver your thoughts in a structured manner and allow the interviewer to follow through with you, even if you have great ideas, it usually sometimes gets lost in that interview setting. So just practicing the interview, and not trying to wing it on the fly helps.
I just want to also talk about, we talked about the interview piece, right? We are on it. So, and we have a lot of people who are from I think, who are not from North America. Let's
Of
call it
course.
that way, or from Europe. So they're either from South America, from India, parts of Asia, and in these countries, interviews are usually what we call as stress interviews, whereas the MBA interviews are, I would call it more of I don't know what you said. Extraction interviews is the best way because they're not stress at all. You get to speak most of the time. So, uh, how do you think one should? What are some of the do's and what are some of the don'ts? We talked about the do's. What are some of the
Mhm.
don'ts that you should avoid?
Uh, so in general, yeah, thinking about
Or
MBA
what are the
interviews,
blunders that you've experienced while interviewing candidates? There's some examples of that.
blunders. Yeah, I think, see, it's an interview, not an interrogation, right? So I think
Hmm.
that's one way to put it. And then in terms of blunders, now I can't remember specific ones. It's been some time, but I'll tell you in general, uh, people who are absolutely rigid in their answers, and so one of the things, right, in interviews, people are also looking for, interviewers are looking for is coachability, right? How coachable is the candidate? Because no matter like your background, you'll need some coaching eventually to be successful in your MBA. So people
Hmm.
who come across as absolutely rigid think they're always right, or there was no other way to have solved a situation other than the way that they did it in. I think those are kind of blunders or don'ts, I would say, that to avoid. I think candidates should hold their ground into defending a decision they made, but then also be open to consider other possibilities and accepting failures. One of the questions people ask is, tell me about a time you failed. Sometimes they ask, that question gets asked, and if you're trying to disguise kind of a weak, a strength into a weakness, and try to come across that way, I think it shows, and not doesn't give the best impression.
I absolutely agree with that. So I think first of all, what you talked about in terms of being flexible, and I think this is very counter to the way we do interviews in India, where we are told to not kind of leave your ground, to hold your ground no matter what, which is not the case. I mean, we're not saying what you did was bad. What you're saying is it's an alternate way. Could you have gone through an alternate way to achieve the same outcome? It's it's kind of where in critical reasoning we say alternate cause is not always a weakness, especially when we're talking about a what if outcome over here. And so I think be flexible, but most importantly, to be able to be flexible, you've got to listen to your interviewer, and that's kind of where you have to get into a mode where you're um, when the interview needs to be a conversation than anything else. I mean, don't you have to rehearse so much that it does seem like a conversation to you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually had another point that I forgot. What was the last thing you said? I know I had another point related to that.
Disguising your strengths as a weakness.
Yes, disguising your strength as a weakness. Yes, thank you about this. And a lot of people also, I mean, for me, when I look at a candidate and someone who hasn't failed, this means they haven't tried enough, which means they haven't pushed themselves enough.
Yeah.
Failures are the biggest learnings you can have. And I think to fail is excellent as long as you tell me what you've learned from it. So I think that's something which everyone should know. And I think someone who says they haven't failed, either they haven't evaluated themselves critically enough, or they haven't. Uh, they basically just think too highly of themselves. They consider failure to be okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. It's a learning journey, right? It shows that you can learn from an experience and take actionable steps to improve yourself.
Yeah, I think that's just to fail when you have that failure example well crafted. I think it's
Yeah,
probably your biggest. It can be your biggest advocate during the interview because if you talk about the learnings from it, I think it just shows how much you self evaluate. So I want to just talk about. We have 10 more minutes before we go into questions. Um, so I want to talk about this. So given your background, you also and then you got all of these internship offers from Microsoft, Amazon, eBay. How did that happen? I mean, what was the role Anderson played? How did you approach these internships, and so on and so forth?
sure. Yeah. So, I came in very green into an MBA experience in terms of recruiting in the United States, which is very, very different from probably any other part of the world. Parker Career Management Center really helped me. So what the Career Management Center provides is that baseline, right? That sort out your resume, learn the art of small talk, which is pretty big in the US, and kind of like reach that baseline where you are equipped to look for jobs, apply effectively, and then of course, like the next part is cracking those interviews. So I think so the Career Management Center set me up at a baseline, but then of course so I'll talk.
Can you elaborate how? You
Yeah,
talked
so,
about
so
resume, but then how did they train you on the small talk piece, for
yeah,
example?
sure. During my time, at least, I'm not sure like if it's still the case. It would be most probably, but during my time, we had a series called the Parker Career Series, and they would come to classes. So trained folks right from the Career Management Center who are trained in teaching people on recruiting would come to classes and hold actual classes on crafting your resume.
Hmm.
We would have to submit an initial version, of course, that you made for applications to business schools, right? You can start from there, and then kind of turn it into a format that's effective, and then start drilling bullet by bullet on your resume on what can be changed. And is it telling the story that you want to tell? Is it highlighting your best achievements? Is it highlighting the skills that the companies that you are recruiting for are looking for? So I think those kind of aspects were very handheld in the beginning, and taking the resume at a point. So think about it, right? If you're applying to a job, the first thing that you do is submit a resume, and that's kind of a make or break if you will hear back from the company or not. So it was a very critical piece that the career center really helped with. uh, and then taking it from there, just kind of giving an overview or kind of a general navigational system on how to navigate the recruiting space in the United States. So an important aspect is networking, which is a lot of people are not really familiar with.
What the hell is
uh,
networking? You have to define
yeah,
it.
yeah, so what is
It's
networking?
not
And
connecting Ethernet cables, by the way.
it is not, right? Yeah, it's connecting with people, totally. And I think in when we are looking for jobs in probably Asia, or I can speak specifically to India, it's very meritocratic, right? I mean, you kind of pass some test, and based on your scores or based on your ranking, you find something else, right? Or you just take an aptitude test and things like that. Very meritocratic. But in the US, it doesn't always happen that way. That there is some objective test that you clear, or you secure a rank and you get a job. So that doesn't work. What works is your connect with people. So reaching out to people who are where you want to be, and then understanding their journey, and making that effort to learn about people, to kind of show yourself that, hey, I'm out here. If you're looking, these are my skills, and building it over time. So people sometimes make a mistake of being very transactional. They would in when they're networking, they would reach out that, hey, I'm looking for a job, and that's the sole reason I'm reaching out to you. I have no interest in what you do, by the way, but if you have a job, just let me know. So I think that's kind of a misstep in networking is about growing your circle of people who can vouch for you when there is an opportunity. That's networking. That having advocates in different places, having advocates in different companies in different positions who will vouch for you, or at least give you a referral, or look out for
So
you.
how did you network, and how much did you network in that first year?
Yeah, so see, few things here. So how much did I network? I think I tapped back to my cohort of friends and family from undergrad who were already working in the US. So that gave me kind of an opening into networking, and through them I reached out to other people in their companies. Actually, like traveled also, and met people in person at that time to understand what they're doing, and when they hire, what are they looking for, and show myself that I'm out there, and this is why I want to be where I want to be, and things like that. But I didn't focus a lot on networking compared to other folks, just because I was fortunate enough to get offers for internship from Microsoft and Amazon early in my MBA journey.
And were they campus recruitments or?
They were campus recruitments, and in campus recruitments, networking doesn't play as big of a role as off-campus recruitments. But of course, even for campus recruitments, you need to network and talk to people to understand what the company is looking for, what the company's culture is, and those things that help you.
Okay, that's a phenomenal response, and I think truly, in just coming to networking, the reason why we do that in the US is because we believe passion's greater is a much better predictor of whether you'd be successful in a role versus merit,
Yeah, yeah,
because that passion actually forces you to take action. Now, the merit part, in many ways, comes from the fact that you're an Anderson student, so that's kind of where the pedigree is already established. Now, beyond that, if you can demonstrate passion, which, by the way, if you want to network successfully, you can't do that without knowing or researching about a person, then then essentially this means that if you can demonstrate passion, then yes, you may be the right person. I'm going to evaluate you. I'm going to spend time on you. If you can't demonstrate passion, then you may be the smartest guy in the world. You're not going to help me get to that next level or help my company get to that next level.
yeah.
So that's kind of why in the US we go a whole lot by that. Networking is what we call it.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Really like that phrasing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It's essentially that's how we do a lot of hiring within EGMAT as well. We don't look at your pedigree till you actually reach the final interview stage. That's when we kind of look at it. Um, so you had this internship, and then you translated this into a full-time job. How did that happen?
Oh, that was kind of a wonderful time. So Microsoft really treats their interns like absolute royalty. A lot of fun in that internship. I was given a challenging internship project, but I really had a great manager who I still talk to, and she mentors me, and absolutely feel free to go back to her whenever I'm stuck on anything. So I think having that clarity on what my manager is looking from her intern, and then also understanding why me and what unique value I can add to that internship project, I think really helped. The basic tenets of networking and understanding company culture, of course, continue throughout that internship journey as well. To be successful in internships, again, like I think you need the validation of your peers as well as others around you, and again, like networking really helps. So if you're doing a project and nobody knows about it or nobody understands the value of it at the end of your internship, nobody has an incentive to vouch for you. But socializing the project as well as having regular syncs with managers during internship really helped. At Microsoft, I think the culture was very collaborative, and it wasn't a stressful internship at all. We had great fun. The company organized kind of a pitbull concert for us. They gave away Xboxes to all the interns, cruise parties, things like that. So the company's internship program is absolutely phenomenal. That's meant to give you a taste of Seattle in general, and then also what does working at Microsoft look like. So to attract that talent through internship, and then hopefully get them full time.
I think one of the other things that you talked about with regards to making these transitions is also to be persistent at trying to achieve what you want to do. And I think one of the pieces that we did not emphasize enough, other than what you talked about, I mean, those networkings and those things are really important, but you actually took a huge risk with regards to not just coming to the US, a small kid, you were running a business, and you moved over here, and you had that belief in yourself. In the same way, I think you've got to keep that belief in yourself during
Yeah.
that internship, during your entire MBA, that you can achieve something. Now, with regards to those networking, were they primarily during the lunchtime that you would go and talk to the managers at other with in other departments?
Yeah, so I think yes, one thing is, or one aspect is those are the lunches and social opportunities to interact with people. But then Otherwise, as well, in a professional setting, just booking time with people one-on-one, and then getting their perspective on
Mm.
what are they looking out for. So there's
Right.
this concept of everybody's looking for this what's in it for me, right? And if you come with that perspective that, hey, I'm doing this and this is how it can help your interests, do you think I'm right, or what's your perspective? What else can I do in this project that helps you grow your team or benefits your team? And then making sure you're trying to incorporate that feedback ensures, one is that people get invested in your project because they see value for themselves and their teams, and then other, you get a variety of feedback and perspectives that you can incorporate into a project and make it holistic.
Very interesting. I had not thought about that part. So that's very, very good. Okay, with that, I think that was the last question. We are, I think, about 40 minutes into the interview. So we're going to now take questions from the audience. But before that, I want to talk about MBA Analytical, our series that we have. So if you guys like this interview, we this is a part of a series. The goal of this is to make sure that you guys are better positioned, not just with respect to your GMAT, which we will help you with, but also with regards to other aspects of your MBA. So, as a part of that, we have a session which is next week, a week from now, next Wednesday at 7 p.m. IST, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time, and we're going to talk to Arjun Pratap Singh, who is going to INSEAD. He also received an admit from ISB. He's going to talk about the application and essay tips. So he is going to be joining. So he's going to figure out how did he network with people, how did he approach the INSEAD application, which arguably is, I think, one of the longest applications, one of the most interesting applications out there, because it pretty much asks you for everything. So that's something which is there, and you can click on the link that we've shared. Then this weekend, we also have two webinars. We have a webinar on reading comprehension. In this, we talk about some key reading strategies that you can use to improve comprehension. Once you do that, async GMAT RC actually becomes a piece of cake. And again, easier said than done, but really, those are the key strategies. Once you master them, you'd see that comprehension go up, and accordingly, the RC ability scores go up. And then we have a quant workshop where we'll look at we'll evaluate where you currently are. We'll tell you which subsections are pushing your score, which ones are limiting your score, and then how can you build that study plan to go from, let's say, a Q42 to Q48, Q45 to Q50, and so on and so forth. Both of these are at 7 a.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. IST. I think it translates to about 3 p.m. UK. Okay. Now, with that, let's kind of get to our questions for today, and there are some interesting questions over here. Um, so, and what's I don't think there's a specific answer to this, but the question is, what's the minimum score required for scholarship? I think let's translate this question into how should you decide whether you'd get a scholarship from a certain school? What's the decision process that should go on in your mind?
So yeah, it's a good question in the sense. So it primarily also depends on which geographical region you're from. So
Mm.
a 750 from India is not as impressive as a 750 from almost any other place, maybe not China. Um,
Mm.
but the way to think about it is you look at your target schools and then understand what is their median GMAT and what's the minimum GMAT, maximum GMAT, things like that. Look at that and then see if you are above that median range. By accepting you, will the school increase their average GMAT or not, right? So if the school's average GMAT is 700, uh, you are from India or China, probably just bump it up by 20-30 points and think for you the average is 730, and then try to get 20 points or 30 points above that. So it's essentially kind of become 750 or 760 if you are targeting a school that has an average or median GMAT of 700, 710ish is how I would like follow a rule of thumb.
Okay, I think let's just and not ask you. Did your wife get a scholarship?
She did. She pretty much got a full ride. Yeah.
Yeah, and she applied to Foster with a 720. And what was the
Yeah.
median score at Foster?
Sorry, I don't remember.
Hmm. But she got a full ride at Foster. That's good.
Yeah, nearly.
Nearly a full ride.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the next question over here, and I think I'm going to just translate to this question. So this guy has 7 years of experience in steel manufacturing. He's mentioned Tata Steel. He's now in that data space. Can he go for consulting? So I think the question, let's translate this question into what should he do? Because I think the answer would be yes, but what should that person do to strengthen his candidacy as a future consultant?
Sure. So I would say, just look at, the most actionable thing you can do is go to the company's website, consulting companies, BCG, if you want to do that, or McKinsey, go there, look at the job openings, right? Look at their job description and see what they're looking for. And if they're looking for, a particular, they would have like list out in bullet points what they're looking for, right? And
No.
that's
I
a
think the
great,
question really is, if his post-MBA goal has to be consulting, how will we
right?
show that that's a reasonable goal for him?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm coming back to that,
Sorry
right?
about that. Yeah.
So once you understand what those jobs are looking for, you have to bring that out in your MBA application that, hey, I can do these things that they are looking for, and then find those aspects in your current job. So for example, if somebody says, great, you should be great at communication, right? So try to highlight aspects of your current role and job that proves or that exemplifies how you are great at communication. Or if they're looking for, should have experience, analyzing data, so you can actually translate it very well by talking about how examples that you've analyzed data and what kind of impact that has had. So I think that's the best way to look at it, right? Like, look at those job descriptions. You'll see objective measures of what people are looking for. Find those in your current job and just talk about those.
That's a really great way to say this. I mean, and I think, Moinak, thank you for adding the data analyst part, because that we could use to really demonstrate how you could do it. That's wonderful. A similar question, which is 10 years of experience in HR, eligible to apply? Yes, I think you are, but the other piece is 3 years bachelor's. What if you have a
Yeah,
3 years bachelor's degree?
right. I think the first one, as you said, yeah, there is probably no limit to the number of years. I think you would have to decide whether a full-time MBA makes sense, or is it an executive one or an evening one that makes more sense. But coming to the second part of whether they accept a 3 years bachelor's, is, from what I remember, they don't. They need a 4-year bachelor's, but there are ways to mitigate that requirement, and you can probably take a year course, or combine it with your 3-year bachelor's and things like that.
Make
So
up credits, right?
yeah,
That's basically what you need to do.
yes, I think you need 4 years of undergraduate
Mm.
education, not necessarily in a stretch.
Mm.
So it takes like almost a year, right, when you start your journey towards an MBA. So I think you can use that year to get that additional year of undergraduate education.
Yes. One of the things that I would say is there are certain schools that will take a 3-year degree, by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
There are certain that don't. And so I think we should probably create a list. But I think the part that you said, that, hey, spend that year to get that 1 year, I think that's something that's there. That's really, really good. So I think there's the another question which was there. How does Microsoft shortlist students, and what roles do they offer to interns? I don't know if you want to just talk something very specific about what you are aware of, or is there?
Yeah, sure. So at business schools, Microsoft usually comes in for a variety of roles. Like, if you want to go into sales, that's available. If you want to go into marketing, that's available. Recently, I'm discovering they're also, recruiting for program managers or engineering kind of roles at business schools. So it's a variety of roles. But the portion on how they shortlist students, there is, multiple aspects to it. And I think we covered it in our recruiting piece, that you need to network, you need to make sure your resume is tailored for Microsoft. It's bringing out the right skills that they're looking for, the right roles. So it's just about the resume, networking, and those things.
Okay. All right. We alluded to this, but we didn't completely do this. And you said you didn't negotiate scholarships.
Yeah.
So if you were to do it now, how would you go about doing it?
Right. So there are a couple of ways, and one is, if you are looking for an increase in scholarship, or just a scholarship from a school, I think a couple of things you can do is express your strong interest on why you really, so because you will be coming from an angle that, hey, school Y or X is giving me 50K.
Mm.
Can you do that as well? And kind of it will feel like, if giving you 50K, why not just go there, right? So express your interest or strong interest again in why this is the school that you want to go, and why probably that scholarship, how that scholarship will help you, and
Mm.
then why do you deserve it. I think that the deserve part comes from kind of this competitive landscape that others are offering you or something. But even if somebody else is offering you a scholarship, you still want to go to school X because of your strong interest, and probably reiterate how much value you will bring to that school. So rather than coming from like that business negotiation of angle of, hey, I'm getting 50K there, give me 50K, I'm not going to come, right? So rather than that, reiterating your strong interest and the value that you bring to the table.
I think that's a really well articulated way of asking for it. I mean, you've got to appreciate what they're offering and then really say why you're looking for more scholarship and what value you bring. Now, let me ask you. So you got this 40% scholarship. The rest was this a loan through the school, or did you actually go for a third party lender?
Yeah, so UCLA specifically had a tie-up with a lender. I think it was Discover, and
Discover, yeah, Discover does
yeah,
loans, yes.
so they gave a collateral-free loan for the tuition, so the full tuition that you owe, and I did avail some of it, but I also, yes, looked for loans within India because I needed more
Okay.
for the whole cost of living, right? Whole cost of attendance, which they don't give a collateral-free loan for.
Okay. And so essentially for the loan part that you got from Discover, what is the interest rate that you paid? Do you remember? Or are you still paying?
Yeah, I of course I'm still paying. But I think so. It's a flexible interest rate. It's not a fixed one. I pay around 7.5 to eight
Okay.
percent. Yeah,
So okay. So it's a prime plus what, 4%, 5%, something like that?
yeah. It was LIBOR plus 4 5%. Yeah, you're
Okay,
right.
LIBOR plus. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Kaki says that I'm from Georgia, the country of Georgia, and he just wants to go to or decided to go to Anderson. He's saying he wants to go into renewable energies. Like, which professor should I reach out to? I don't know if you know that off the back of your hand. Some people who work in renewable energy.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm probably not the best person because my focus was not on energy. But what I can tell you is that there were people at UCLA who came from an energy background, conventional one, oil and gas industries and so forth, but wanted to transition into renewable, and they could do that. So there would probably be people at UCLA you can reach out to.
Okay. Okay. Let's take the GMAT question. Take my GMAT in the upcoming month to advance my career. How to start? Uh, there were she just I would say take a Sigma X mock. We can provide you with a link and then write to me at rajat@e-gmat. We can help create that study plan for you. So Atul or Anish, if you can provide a link to taking a Sigma X mock and then possibly my email or scheduling a call with one of the strategy advisors. That's something that would be there. Uh, so let's look at this question. Will a 720 hinder my chances? Uh, at UCLA, what do you think for someone who's an Indian? I mean, we can infer that this person's an Indian, not a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, so yeah, it depends, right? So I think first of all, congratulations on your 720. It's a great score. I
Mm.
don't think it hinders chances of admission to any school. But of course, as you know, like GMAT is kind of 30% of the application. So I would say uh, probably if you had 20 or 30 points more, it would have been kind of an ideal situation. But you can still, make it to Anderson or UCLA with the 720. I've seen people doing that. So it's pretty doable, but you need to focus a lot on your other portions of the application, specifically the essays, and bring out that value on why you should be at Anderson. But of course, yeah, if you have the means and the time to retake, I would suggest a retake. That increases your chances. So 720 doesn't hinder it, but of course, uh, not kind of carry the weight of your application?
I think I would just say this, if you get a 750, it probably increases your chances significantly, not just of an admit, but also of a scholarship. So
Scholarship.
yeah, I mean, spend some time, spend some money, get to that 750 score, and essentially one of my fellow interviewers, Dipinti, she had a 730. She applied to a bunch of schools, didn't get anywhere. Then she improved her score to 760, just updated that score, didn't even apply again. So she was yet to hear from one school. She updated that score, and that was the highest ranked of the schools she applied to, Tuck. And she not only received an admit, but she also received a 50K scholarship. And we've seen that with probably 20 other people over there. So if you look at our YouTube channel, you'll see many such examples. Here's a very interesting question by Shita. He says, how do we communicate? He's trying to connect with them over LinkedIn, but they don't accept the request. Why do you think that happened? I'm sure you've experienced some of this. Why would you not accept a
Right.
request? And when would you accept a request?
So yeah, this is an interesting one. I get messages from people. They're trying to connect to me, and when I sometimes accept, like they're super surprised even that, hey, like finally somebody responded. But the way to think about this is, see, MBA students are absolutely crazy busy. They have a lot going on. They might be in a different time zone. You might have caught them at the wrong time. So those are the aspects. But how to increase the chances of you receiving a response from people is be very specific with your ask, but not be transactional. So quickly introduce yourself in a couple of lines, uh, express why you are reaching out, and then have an actionable next step that, hey, can I set up a 20-minute call with you? Or can I have your email address? Or what's the best way to get information from you? Or are you open for an 20-minute informational? If you do 20 minutes instead of 30, I think people respond more because somehow it feels like it's a very short commitment. So have that actionable last step and don't leave it dangling on, hey, I exist, respond. So I think that doesn't work. So if you follow that framework and then persistently reach out to people, that usually works. One other thing is look out for people who are in leadership positions in clubs, and then come to them from an angle of, I'm really interested in that club at that specific school, and people usually would respond because they're kind of, they have already self-selected to represent that club and volunteered to do so, so they'll be open to talking about it.
Those two really, really great points. And I think as when you said 20 minutes, it got me thinking, why 20 minutes? Because you're right, I do that too. And I think the reason about this is when you think about 30 minutes, that 30 minutes could get extended to an hour very easily. And I don't want to give an hour. But if we say 20 minutes, it probably will get extended to 25. Worst case 30, it would not go beyond that. That's
Yeah,
kind of still acceptable to me. The clubs part is very, very, very useful as well. And I think one of the other things would be very interesting is another point that you said before, which is find your twin. I think find the person who's kind of from a similar background. I think that you already get that connect, and I think then you increase your chances to really get a response if you follow these. Again, I'm going to take an example of a couple of our students. I'm going to take Dipinti's example again. She actually connected with about 40 students, and she approached 40. She connected with 40 students, and it was like I told her, I was like, you should open a dating website rather than doing an MBA. You're really good at this. We had another student, Jim, who would be joining Booth, and he okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I think my internet went away. So let's talk about this question. Does job hopping affect your MBA admissions?
so yeah, I'm not sure. See, if you look at me, I kind of did that. I did hop around. As long as if you're good, as you have, you might not have had it, but if you can say you had a good reason to do that job hopping, you were clear in what you were looking for in your next gig, why it made sense in your overall plan, and connect it to the kind of skills you have acquired through that job hopping, I think it doesn't really affect that much.
Okay, and that's very well said. I think I would at this point say download Sankalp's profile, look at what he's done, and I think you'd really see. I think he's a classic example of someone who's done not just, I wouldn't call it just job hopping, who's done things that are completely in different dimensions. Is what I would say, and I think we can take motivation from that. But we are at that 60-minute mark, and Sankalp, at this point I want to thank you for joining and for taking time out to give back. It was a pleasure. It was pleasure talking to you, and think our viewers had a fantastic experience. There's some really interesting questions as well. So thank you for that. And for others who still have questions that are not answered, you can post those questions. We'll try and get to those, and again, join the session next week with Arjun on the INSEAD application, as well as the GMAT sessions this weekend. Um, Thank you a lot. Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Sankalp.
thanks so much for inviting me, Rajat and Atul and team. Lovely chatting with you. I think good to relive the GMAT days and MBA application days, and always happy to talk about those things. So for your viewers also, like, yeah, you can please feel free to reach out to me. I will respond. So you can count me as one of the people, right, to send out on LinkedIn.
As long as you follow the best practices.
Yep. And good
20
luck,
minutes.
everybody. Yeah.
All right. All right.